Hello and welcome to Katrina's Creations. This is our Wednesday edition and I'm filming in my living room because, believe it or not, I hurt my knee again. The one I had surgery on, I don't know what I did. I stepped out of the car and I can't put any weight on it at all. I'm back on crutches again, and so yeah, this is where I'm sitting with an ice pack on my knee while I'm filming this. But anyway, today's video is going to be about weaving, and I have been working on my loom. The footage you're going to see is before I hurt my knee. I filmed it earlier this week. And I have a 4-harness tabletop loom, and so I'm going to be showing you that, and I'm going to show you some weaving. I am making a neck scarf. And so let me tell you a little bit about weaving and the history of it before we get started. And I'll show you the shuttle that I use for my weaving, because there's different types of shuttles as well. So weaving is one of the oldest crafts in the world. It traces back 12,000 years. Fences, shelters, and baskets were originally woven. People would even weave reeds together for their roofs. They would make their fences out of woven, almost like a basket style that their fences were woven with. And back in the 11th century, a lot of the patterns that we still use today were established. Steam and water power looms began to be used from 1760 until 1815, which would have been the Industrial Revolution. The flying shuttle, which I will show you in a minute, was used. It's also called a boat shuttle. It came into being around 1733. Now, there are different types of looms. There's the traditional type that you're used to seeing, which is lays flat, and it is worked with a beater bar and with throwing the yarn through what's called the shed, which is an open area on the weaving table itself. But there's also upright looms, which are like your Navajo weaving. It's basically like an oversized potholder loom, but it stands upright and they weave upright. Your tapestries that were done in medieval times, those were also done on upright looms. Up in Lowell, Massachusetts, there is a huge weaving complex. It was a major industrial area right there for weaving. And a few years ago, my husband and I went up there, and it was amazing. They were electronic looms. There were 60 looms per room, and they only had 2 of them running because the velocity that the shuttles are thrown through the loom and the noise that it makes was actually shaking the foundations of the building. And that was just with 2 running. So you can't even imagine what it was like with 60 running in that building. They gave us earplugs while we were in there because of the noise. The workers at that time did not use earplugs. A lot of times there were a lot of injuries. You would hear during the Industrial Revolution, a lot of children worked in the weaving factories, and they were used to tie they would have to slide in between parts of the loom and tie strands of yarn when they broke, and a lot of children were hurt during this time as well. So that's what the big industrial weaving machines. What I have is a small tabletop, so my fingers are safe. So anyway, let me show you a couple of the shuttles that are available. This is the shuttle that I am using. It just has like a notch on each side. This is a flat shuttle, and you just wind the fiber around it, and it just fits right through the loom. Now, there's a boat shuttle, also known as a flying shuttle, and it is this type. And you can see it's called a boat shuttle because it looks like a canoe. And it lifts, there's a bobbin right here that comes off, and you can wind your yarn around it, and then it threads through this little slot here. So you put this on. You put it through this little slot, and then you just drop the bobbin back inside. Now, I'm not using this. You notice this is much narrower than the long one. And so you literally open up the harness so that there's space between the yarn, and you throw it back and forth. That's why it's called flying shuttle. It's got this point, it's smooth, it has a curved edge that's curved up on the top here. So you literally can throw it back and forth. You can go very fast with this compared to this shuttle. However, because the yarn I am using is a DK weight, and my shuttle, or my loom, is basically meant for no larger than maybe a sock weight, I'm using this one because I can load a lot more yarn onto this. This, I would fill up this bobbin in no time. So I'm using this bigger one. So I'm literally, you don't throw it through, you just kind of hand it back and forth through it. So that being said, I am going to show you the footage of the weaving process, and I hope you enjoy it, and I will see you again on Saturday for episode 167. Thanks for watching. This is my weaving loom. It is a 4-harness loom made by Artcraft. It's from the 1970s, I believe. Normally a tabletop 4-harness loom like this would run between $400 and $600, so I never expected to have one. However, I found this at an auction and I got it for $40. Now, it is meant to sit on a tabletop, but because I'm short, it's too tall for me. So my husband actually built this little cart on the bottom, and it has a shelf that I store things in a box, and it's on rollers. So when I'm done with it, I can roll it into the closet and it's not sticking out, because it weighs about 40 pounds to lift it on its own. So let me show you the parts of the loom itself. The front bar here is called the breastplate, or the breast bar, and this is going to be like right up against you while you're working. This is a roller, and there's the crank for it, and the bar right here that your finished work goes onto. So this actually, as you finish your work, it is attached on this end, and then it gets cranked. It gets cranked onto this rolling bar here, like this. And it stores, because you want to keep everything tense, like tight the whole time, so that's what this is for. So it actually rolls right onto that, and you just keep it tight. So this is the front. This is the beater bar. It moves back and forth, and the purpose of it is to, once you've woven across, you pull this down, and it will bring all of your stitches all the way across, nice and tight. So it's called the beater bar for that reason, because you see people moving it back and forth like this. Now, on this beater bar, this whole section that runs all the way across here is called a reed, but there are little slits along here. I'll see if I can film them. There, you can see them. These particular little slits that go across here are called dents. And you're going to thread, the yarn gets threaded through there. The size that these are would work mostly for like a fingering weight or sock weight at the most. They do make some that have a wider gap between the reeds, or between the dents, so that you could use thicker yarn or all the way up to rug weight yarn. However, this isn't one of them, and I don't want to replace it just for the little bit of weaving that I do. So that's why I'm going to be threading my warp with a thinner yarn for that reason. Now, behind the beater bar, these are called heddles. They are hooked to the harnesses. These are the harnesses, which I'll show you in a minute. But each of these, see if I can show them to you. Each of these are a wire
And the wire in the center has this little loop. That's what your yarn gets threaded through. So it's coming from the back of the loom. It comes through the harness, through this little hole, then through the beater bar and over to the breastplate. Now, each of these harnesses has 100 petals on them. I'm not using that many. I'm only using a total of 100 strands of yarn. So I'm going to have 25 on each of the harnesses. So what I have done over here is I have just tied them together just to make it a little bit easier. And the harnesses are over here. When I lift these levers, it will lift the harnesses. So there's a different color for each of the 4 harnesses. If I want to do an over and under pattern, I'm going to lift harnesses 1 and 3 and then put the shuttle through, and then I would lift 2 and 4. I'm going to be doing a herringbone, so I'm going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, and 1. So let me show you the harnesses as they lift. So here are the harnesses as they lift. And then when you're done, you just release the harness and you would lift the next one. So that's basically how it works. Now I'll take you around to the back. I'm getting ready to do what is called dressing the loom, which is the actual threading of the yarn through the loom. And I'm going to do most of it, and then I will show you all what I do with it when I get to the last couple. But I'm basically going to be taking, because I have 4 harnesses, thread number 1 will go through harness number 1, yarn number 2 will go through harness number 2, yarn number 3 through harness number 3, yarn number 4 through harness number 4, and then it will repeat. So I will do that a total of 25 times for every 4 yarns. So let me show you what the back of this is going to look like. Now here's the back of the loom. This is looking at the back of the harnesses, and you can see faintly the breastplate through on the other side. So I have tied my yarn that's going to be, this is the warp. I am going to tie the warp from the back and take it through the front. They're tied in groups of 10. So I have 10 groups of 10. This is probably not the most conventional way to do it. It's just the way I do it. There's other more professional ways of doing this. This is just what works for me. So once I get the loom warped for the most part, I will come back and show you what it looks like, and then I can show, you'll see the differences with bringing the harnesses up. It'll show a little bit more. I've now started running these through the petals, which are right here. And if you look down here, you can see where the petals right here attach to the bottom of the harness. And I've kept them in order, so you can see here is harness number 1, number 2, number 3, and number 4. Right there. And then they're running over, right now and then right now I am draping them in order. You can see them over on this side here. They're just over the top of the beater bar, and I'm keeping them in the right order because then I'll go around to the front and weave them through. The ones over here have already been woven through. You can see they're through the petals, and over here they are through the beater bar. So now I'll do this for a little bit so you can kind of see how this works. So I'm starting with the heddle on harness number 1. and I'm going to thread it through the loop. And I pull the yarn all the way through, and then for right now I am draping it over the front, but keeping it in the right order here. So now I'm going to go and pull harness number 2, the next heddle, which is right here, and I'm going to thread that one and do the same. I'm now at the front, and you can see these are ones I have pulled through the beater bar, and these are the ones that were from the back that are coming forward, and you can see I've kept them in order so that I make sure I get them through the dents evenly, and I'm doing going through every other dent. So now I'll show you how I'm doing that. I have this little tool, and it has, you can see it has a hook on the end here, and that actually will reach right in between the reeds, and I grab the yarn, sort of like a flat crochet hook, and I will put it right through the dent and pull it through the other side. So I have no idea what this is called, but it's sort of like a flat crochet hook. And here I have pulled it through, and then I do the next one. So I'm going through the dent. I've grabbed the yarn, and now I am pulling it through. And I'm just laying them over the breast bar while I'm doing this. And then I get them in a group of 10, and I tie them just loosely. So I'm going to finish this up, and then I will show you what happens next. Alright, I have everything set up. I have begun actually weaving, but we'll start with this is the breast bar here, or breastplate, and you can see that I've got it all tied off tightly on this side, and it's around this roller. As I finish weaving, it will come over the edge and roll onto here. And then up here, this is the weaving, and I'm doing the herringbone pattern. It's showing up better on the green than it is on the gray. The green is my waist yarn, because you usually do a few rows in just to get things started, because where it joins right here, you don't want that to be the beginning of your work. So this is like waist. This will get cut off when I'm done and pulled out. So here is the actual herringbone. And here you can see it goes through the beater bar, and you can see this as it pushes against here, it straightens it out across this. And then here are my different heddles. And now let's look at the back. And here you can see the back where it's coming out of the heddles and coming over the back bar where it is wound onto here. So as I use it in the front, I will unwind here and it will reload up through the harnesses. So now let's take a look at how to do this. Now I'm going to raise the first harness, and you can see that it's now lifted up. This is the first harness, and I push the beater bar to the back. Now if I was just doing an under and over pattern, I would not have to worry about these end threads being caught, because they would be. However, because I'm doing a herringbone, only one out of every 4 is actually going to catch on this edge. So I'm actually picking up every other row. I'm actually looping underneath here just so I have a nice finished edge. So I'm going to pick up that first section, and then I'm going to go in between. And this section in between that gets lifted up, it forms almost like a tube, as you can see right here when the shuttle's coming through. This area here is called the shed. So the harnesses, when they lift, it opens up the shed, and this is where the bobbin goes through. So I am pulling that through. It's a little difficult to do one-handed, but I want to make sure I don't pull too tightly on this edge here, or it will draw my fiber in. So I'll tuck it about like that, and then I'm going to bring the beater bar back, and you can see it compresses the yarn up against the previous row. And I can adjust this edge just a little bit if I need to, and then pull it down. And then I'm going to go up here, and I'm going to release that harness, and I'm going to bring down harness number 2. And there you can see harness number 2 has lifted, and this is a different set of raised fibers from the row before. So again, I'm going to take my shuttle and pass it through the shed. And out the other side. And I'm going to watch this edge right here. I'm going to watch this edge right here. I'll bring the beater bar back, and that one looks just about right. And you can kind of see, like I said, the herringbone pattern shows up a little bit better with the green. You can see it's forming a V, like right. You can see the V right in here. It's doing on the gray, it just doesn't show up as well. So I will be continuing this when this section here fills all the way up to this beater bar, which is about 6 inches. I will then loosen the crank in the front and the back, and I will crank this roll. This will come forward, and some more will feed in through the back. And I'll keep doing that until I get it to the length that I want it to be. So now I have woven all the way up as tight as I can get against the beater bar here. You can see I've got the shuttle in here, but I'm right as tight as it can go. So I'm going to finish this row, and then I'm going to show you how to roll the fiber down around here and how it's going to unroll in the back. And as you can see, I have worked my way almost up to the beater bar here. It's tight enough now that it's tight to get the bobbin in between here, or the shuttle in between there. So I'm going to now use the cranks that are on both sides, and I'm going to move the fiber over the breast bar and over onto this roller here. And then I'm going to bring more fiber from here and feed it through the loom. So in order to do that, I'm going to loosen the tension. This is just a little lever that locks the gear. This is a gear, it has like little spikes on it. And I'm going to do the same thing here. And you can see the tension was just released. Now I will crank this and you will see the fiber going over, and I'll take it to just about where the breastplate is and put the lock back on it. And then I'm going to go over to this side because you want it to be taut. You want the tension to be high. I'm going to put the little lock on it, and you can see it. As it does this. And now it's drawn tight again. And you can see I have an open area with my shed to get started with the next round. So that is the end of the spinning tutorial.